All right, so Carlos Correa headed to the Twins, 6 years at $200 million, and then there's some vesting options as well. John Harper covering the Mets for SNY tweeting out, actually, I think it's a good sign overall for the Mets' future that Cohen, after all the love he got from the media and fans for getting Correa, took a strong stand on a reduced contract due to injury risk, seemingly driven by irrational decision-making rather than swept up in being the hero. So let's welcome in John Harper now. John, thanks for spending a little time with us. So, I mean, and that's a good, smart, rational take. But, I mean, how do you think Met fans are reacting to Carlos Correa now? He's not going to be part of their infield. He's going to be back with the Twins.
Are you trying to say Mets fans aren't rational, friend?
No, but the emotions,
yeah,
you know?
There's a lot of emotion, though. I mean, look, it's hard to judge by Twitter, but the reaction seems to be pretty mixed. I think a lot of fans do understand that there's a lot of risk here. Who knows how it's going to turn out? Maybe the Mets will be wrong about it, but there's a lot of risk here. And Cohen did make a decision, like he didn't become worth $17 billion by making emotional decisions. And the fans were going crazy when he did get Correa. This guy will do anything for us to win. He'll spend any amount of money. He could have easily justified signing off on it because the money isn't that meaningful to him. So I think it's split amongst Mets fans. I think they've come to trust this guy, Steve Cohen, that he's going to do what he thinks is best and what's right for the franchise in the short term and the long term as well.
Well, let me ask you one more question here about the deal. And now he was willing to spend upwards of $315 million, but you said he took a hard stand. And so John Heyman had reported that basically they were willing to guarantee about half that money, 157-ish over 6 or 5 years. But so now knowing what the Twins were able to get him for, do you think that maybe Cohen and the Mets, the front office brass, second guessing themselves a little bit? Because if they're willing to pay $315, maybe they would have had him for making it up $220, $225.
Right. Yeah, you can definitely make the case that there's not that much of a difference between what they were willing to pay, the $157 not guaranteed, and what the Twins ended up paying. So I think there had to be a lot of discussion behind the scenes, but I think Cohen had to feel strongly about, hey, we're gonna set a limit here. Obviously, that's why this went on for a couple of weeks as it did. And I do think I've heard there was some conversation about, hey, we can always move on. Ohtani's going to be a free agent, if not on the market as a trade guy this summer, and Machado as well could opt out as a free agent next winter. There's moves to make that maybe that we're better off making those moves than we are in taking this risk with Correa. Feeling like because I said to myself, I think the Mets still they're a 100-win team. I think that's not the issue. I think they're going to get to the postseason. Correa was a guy that maybe could push you over the top because of his track record in October. But I feel like they're going to be able to make moves along the way here, even if it's at the trade deadline, to still be that type of team that can win the World Series.
I like your rational thought process. John Harper from SNY joining us here on MLB Tonight back inside Studio 3. And John makes great sense. I mean, and Steve Cohen, and, hey, decided, look, we're not going to do it. We're not going to, this is the amount of money that we're going to guarantee. But the Twins actually came up a little higher. They end up with a player. So now the question is, how does this affect the Mets?
Well, I mean, I was looking forward to seeing Lindor, Correa on the left side. It reminds me of that WBC ball club. They were phenomenal.
They played for Team Puerto Rico. And Correa played third base, and Lindor played short.
Exactly, and he was willing to do that, to go over to the Mets. We thought it was a done deal. Obviously, the rest is history. Now he's with the Twins and not with the Mets. But this is one of the things that Steve Cohen, I think, when you put everything in the balance, says, you know what? We're going to pass on this. And if Correa goes off somewhere else, so be it. So this is something, we just heard about not making decisions emotionally.
Right.
And that's something that Steve Cohen is pretty good at. And his business record pretty much tells you about that. But just having a player like Correa, especially the way he performs in the postseason, Mike. And we're talking about, it's 101 wins last season, so we know that this ball club is capable. But having Correa on the left side, it seemed like it would push him over the top and really become a World Series contender. Not that they're not right now. Right. It's just that piece would have solidified the case for the Mets just winning it all.
Well, you look at all the moves they made, and they lost some big-name pieces, but they replaced them with big-name pieces. You go DeGrom out, Verlander in. Chris Bassett out, Senga's in. Taijuan Walker signs with the Phillies. Jose Quintana comes in. So you look at that and you say, well, this is still a 101 win team. This is still, I would say, one of the top 5-6 teams in the big leagues. I just think you add Correa, especially with the third base numbers. Eduardo Escobar is a capable player. I think he's a good player. He's not Carlos Correa. And the Mets, their offensive numbers from the third base position were below half. So now you add Carlos Correa, you're in that probably elite top 3 or 4 production from that third base position. So, you know, there's a lot to be desired if you had Correa on the team. But once again, a little setback to the Braves, and they're not playing that wild card series that I think did a lot of damage to the Mets, you know, and it kind of took away that aura of what a great year of winning 101 games. You're the number, if you're, you know, if you're the top seed, you're playing at home. You get to rest 3-4 days. So I think that took a little bit of a hit. So, I mean, could it have taken them to, let's call it a super elite level? Possibly. But, man, I just looked down the road. Steve Cohen, for me, 200, 250, 260, 315 doesn't change anything, you know? That's a rounding error for this guy because he's this successful. So for him to really take a stance, it's because there was a lot of evidence saying that this is not a smart decision to make. We don't know what the crystal ball says 8 to 10 years from now, but I do appreciate kind of what was tweeted, that it does show that I'm just not this reckless owner that's just throwing money at everyone. I'm making decisions to really make the Mets the best team possible.
Here's the issue, though, if you're a Mets fan, okay? So this, and I'm with you, I think if you get Correa at third base, now you're talking about a team that can easily contend for a World Series championship, if everyone stays healthy. But, I mean, that plus Correa has great postseason experience as well. So then the rub is, do you trade over a 5-year period, you know, 2 or 3 chances at a bite at a World Series apple, maybe 2, for a player who maybe, you know, in years 7 through 10 might not be the same guy? And that's what I think they're going to have to answer. Now, I mean, as John said, there's some big names out of Shohei Ohtani and Manny Machado next year. But, you know, there are other teams who are going to be in on Shohei Ohtani.
There's 29 other teams
as well. So I think that's going to be what Met fans, how I think this is judged, whether they made the right decision or the wrong decision. So, but it's certainly going to be fun to watch play out. Speaking of fun to watch play out, Mike Conforto is back. He signed a 2-year deal worth $36 million with the Giants. Up next, we'll talk to the new Giants outfielder about what it's like to be back on the dime. Here's the issue, though, if you're a Mets fan, okay? So this, and I'm with you, I think if you get Correa at third base, now you're talking about a team that can easily contend for a World Series championship, if everyone stays healthy. But, I mean, that plus Correa has great postseason experience as well. So then the rub is, do you trade over a 5-year period, you know, 2 or 3 chances at a bite at a World Series apple, maybe 2, for a player who maybe, you know, in years 7 through 10 might not be the same guy? And that's what I think they're going to have to answer. Now, I mean, as John said, there's some big names out of Shohei Ohtani and Manny Machado next year. But, you know, there are other teams who are going to be in on Shohei Ohtani.
There's 29 other teams
as well. So I think that's going to be what Met fans, how I think this is judged, whether they made the right decision or the wrong decision. So, but it's certainly going to be fun to watch play out. Speaking of fun to watch play out, Mike Conforto is back. He signed a 2-year deal worth $36 million with the Giants. Up next, we'll talk to the new Giants outfielder about what it's like to be back on the dime.